Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve. Today we're taking a look at a Game Week 31 wildcard threemium that I am almost certainly pulling the trigger on this week, and some reasons as to why I've decided to wildcard early instead of waiting until Game Week 33. So for those of you that are new to the channel, I still have my free hit as well, which is going to be going into Game Week 32, because I'll be loading up on teams that will be blanking in Game Week 32. And I still also have the bench boost in hand as well. I had to bail on the bench boost in Game Week 29, mostly because Haaland got injured across the international break, and so we pivoted away from the 29 bench boost strategy. We were going to wildcard in 33 and then bench boost in 34, but having seen Rashford get injured, which is one of the key things that's really changed, we have pulled the wildcard forward to Game Week 31. Now it's time to this. I am recording on the 11th of April in New Zealand time at 1 p.m. That's about 1 a.m. on the 11th in the UK. Game Week 30 is all done and dusted. Came away with 65 points. Made 2 transfers for the game week, bringing in Chilwell for the injured Luke Shaw, because I was planning to get Luke Shaw back on the Game Week 33 wildcard, so it was easy to do that. He was benched by Lampard, new manager, so that's another reason why we're pulling the wildcard forward. I'm not entirely sure about Chilwell's minutes for Game Week 31. And the other main trade was we sold McAllister and brought in Jack Grealish for his goal and assist this week, bringing me up to a total score of 65. But this video is all about the wildcard, and I suspect it might take a little while to go through, so we'll just jump right on into it. Now, to just very quickly read out my team for those of you without the visuals out there. We have Kepa in net, with the backup goalkeeper of Danny Ward, who was dropped in game week 28, I think, or 27, one of the two, so he's a non-playing goalkeeper. With Lampard back in charge of Chelsea, I am completely unsure how long Kepa will last in the first team at Chelsea. He could be dropped any week, as Lampard dropped him last time for Mendy. So I could end up with no goalkeepers if Kepa was dropped this week. Across the back line, I've got Trippier, Chilwell, which is the new purchase this week, who was surprisingly benched. Sven Botman. On the bench, I had Zinchenko, who is away to West Ham this week, and Tarkowski, who has been sitting in third spot on my bench for quite a while. Obviously, Tarkowski is not the strongest bench member to be holding on to, so we want to be dealing with him on the wild card. Across the middle of the park, we still have Saka in the team, whereas actually looking quite good going into that Liverpool game. I was up about 300,000 places, I think, hoping that Saka could do the business. He came away with a 1-pointer. We still ended up in the green arrow, but could have been a lot better in game week 30. We have Rashford, who picked up his injury in the fixture in game week 30. We also have James Maddison, who was a punt for the game week 29 double instead of Fernandes. Thankfully, I didn't get punished too much because Fernandes didn't really do anything across the last few game weeks, but Leicester are looking woeful. Rodgers is sacked. Maddison looks unhappy as well, and so even though he will still be playing in this team, he is a very weak link and is someone that we want to deal with. We have Jack Grealish in the middle of the park, who I mentioned was my transfer in this week. He will be staying on the wild card, so he will be sitting still in my midfield. And on the bench we have Odegaard, who would be away to West Ham this weekend. Across the front line we have Haaland at home to Leicester, Kane at home to Bournemouth, and Isak away to Aston Villa. So the main players that are weak or in doubt is, as I said, both my keepers. So Kepa, Ward, Ben Chilwell didn't get a start. Rashford is injured. Maddison is playing terribly. We don't want to ever be bringing Tarkowski in off the bench, and so we've got like 6 players that we could easily deal with. Now, for the wild card, I'm definitely going threemium. There is no two questions about it. My best scores throughout the season have come playing with 3 premiums in my team and going a little bit lighter in defense in order to support that. And with the run out of fixtures for the big teams across the final fixtures of the 22-23 season, I think the strategy is still to go a little bit light in defense and to load up on the midfield and attack in order to jump on the biggest high ceiling players. As I said, the ones that could score the most amount of points most frequently across the remaining game weeks of the season. So, to start with, obviously Kepa will be going, and the main keeper that I will be playing with for the rest of the season will be Steele at Brighton. Now, Steele is super cheap, 3.9 million. Is the starting keeper at Brighton. I think it'll be highly unlikely that he loses his spot back to Sanchez across the remaining fixtures under the season, unless of course he did terribly week on week. But we've seen his ball distribution skills are pretty good. Playing out from the back's really very accurate. He even got an assist for Matoma, I think it was last week or the week before, where he just sent a through ball through to put Matoma in one-on-one with the keeper, showing exactly why De Zerbi has chosen to pull him in instead of Sanchez. And for any of you out there that do still have a wild card remaining, make sure that you don't end up doubling up on keepers that have doubles that cannot play in the same game week. So there was a whole bunch, like I went through about maybe 5 or 6 wildcard drafts trying to figure out how I could get the most bang for buck out of the players that I'm trying to load up on in Manchester United, Manchester City, Brighton, Newcastle, who all have a lot of doubles remaining. Liverpool as well has 1 double remaining, and so does Chelsea, but Chelsea's is a lot later in the season and Liverpool's is coming up in game week 34. So your second choice keeper probably shouldn't be another one of those key doublers unless you're using that keeper in some sort of bench boost. Now I know a lot of people have played the bench boost already. I think about 60% of the game played their bench boost in game week 29, which took it up to about 80% total or something like that. So there's still about 20% of teams out there that haven't used their bench boost. So out of 11.3 million players, it's about 2.6 million odd accounts. But just make sure you don't make the mistake of going someone like, Steele and Allison or Steele and Edison or something like that, because Brighton have 3 double game weeks to play. They double in the same weeks as Man City and Manchester United and Liverpool in game week 34. And unless you're bench boosting, you won't be able to play both keepers. And so there's not much point spending the extra money on getting those guys in. So I'll go with my second choice keeper at the moment. And it's a very hard decision in order to get the second keeper locked in. So if I just very quickly bring up Ben Crellin's fixture schedule here. For the remaining doubles, so I'm bench boosting in game week 34, so I want a keeper that's going to be doubling in game week 34. But considering that my main keeper is going to be Steele, because they double in 34 as well as probably 36 and probably 37, so they've still got another 2 doubles to fit in somewhere. And in game week 36, their double will be with Newcastle, so going with a Steele and Pope combination is out of the question because you cannot play both keepers in the same game week. Similarly, Brighton double with Man City and Manchester United and Chelsea all in game week 37, or that is the likely scenario where it's going to take place. And so we do not want De Gea, Ederson, or whoever the keeper at Chelsea is going to be. Currently, keeper could end up being Mendy, so we don't want any of those keepers. We definitely want a keeper that is doubling in game week 34. And with the process of elimination of no Liverpool, no City, no United, I'm pretty much only left with Fulham and Leno, who have a double of Man City at home and Liverpool away in game week 34, or Fabianski at West Ham, who double in 34, and that is away to Crystal Palace and away to Man City. So obviously here, West Ham have the kinder double of the two. I would say West Ham are probably a more defensive team than Fulham as well. Fulham having to play Man City at home and Liverpool away is probably two of the worst doubles that you could imagine, and with that Crystal Palace fixture in there for Fabianski, he is the man that we are going with, even though he is a little bit... well, he's not too pricey, he's down at 4.9 million, but we can play him in the double in 34. Steele is only 3.9 million, so the pairing of the goalkeepers comes out relatively cheap at, what's that, 8.8 million or something. So a bit more expensive than I would normally spend, but we do need to lock in a goalkeeper that's going to have a good chance at least getting one clean sheet in that double in game week 34. Right, so we'll go to the back line. So Trippier is going nowhere. He is staying in the squad. As I mentioned, Newcastle already have a double at some point to be scheduled in. Trippier is one of the most value picks and is in all the teams out there. We will not be dropping him. He can absolutely still do the damage across the remaining fixtures of the season. We are not going to be going with any Chelsea players for a couple of reasons. We're unsure what Lampard is going to be doing with the Chelsea squad. Chelsea's double isn't until about game week 36 or 37, depending on when that is scheduled in. We will have enough time between now and game week 31 and game week 35 or 36, whenever Chelsea double, to have a fair idea of what is going on at Chelsea. We don't have to make that decision now. And we may not even want to jump on Chelsea, depending on how the remainder of the season plays out for Chelsea. So, like I said earlier, we are going to be going pretty cheap in defense in order to fit in 3 premiums. So the first man on the list is Martinez from Manchester United, who is away to Nottingham Forest this week, doubles in game week 34 and doubles again in probably game week 37, Bournemouth away and Chelsea at home. The rest of the fixtures are pretty good apart from game week 33 where they're away to Tottenham. We can bench Martinez for this week when you see the rest of the team, and I will run you through the steps forward until game week 34 so we can see what the bench boost is looking like. But Tottenham, double of Villa at home, Brighton away, West Ham away, Wolves at home, double of Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, and Fulham at home is a pretty good run out for anyone at Manchester United for defenders or attackers. Martinez is nice and cheap, down at 4.5 million, is pretty much nailed on in that United backline and does okay on the bonus points as well. So very cheap way into the Manchester United defence, and he is in on the wild card. Now Botman is staying in the team for the fact that he is super cheap, and the fact that they still have a double to be played. Their game in game week 34 for Trippier and Botman is a single game week, but it is it's against Southampton and it is at home, so that's a pretty good defensive fixture even though it is a single game week. There are some options where we may look to switch Botman for that one game week 34. It's unlikely that it will happen because I'll probably just have to buy him back. But for the meantime, we will have Botman. He will not be playing in game week 31 though, so we will chuck him on the bench. We are going without any Arsenal lads either, and so Zinchenko will be sold. And here is my first pretty differential pick that I am still not 100% sure that I am going to go through with. But we're going to go with Konate from Liverpool. Now, Konate at Liverpool has started the last, I'll just bring it up, I think it's 6 game weeks, was it? Game week 25, the second game of the double in 25, he got 90 minutes, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The last 6 game weeks in a row, he has started and played the full 90 minutes, with Van Dijk and Matip being the other two that have been the ones that have sat out across that period of time. Van Dijk has probably played a bit more than Matip, with Van Dijk only missing out to that Chelsea game and otherwise being nailed on. So it looks like Klopp, as part of the change in order to kick Liverpool back into gear, because they went through that period where they were just looking absolutely woeful. They were conceding in about they were the first to concede in so many games in a row. It was absolutely ridiculous. Something had to change. It looks like Klopp has decided that Konate in is the way that he has shored up the defence a little bit. And since he has come in, he got a clean sheet against Wolves in the 2-0 victory, a clean sheet against Manchester United in the 7-0 victory. They lost their clean sheet against Bournemouth, but they only conceded once. It was a 1-0 loss. They obviously got smashed by Man City. I think that was just part of the fact that Man City is just leagues above Liverpool at the moment. Liverpool are still back on the mend. He then played against Chelsea away. So the last 3 games for Liverpool have been pretty tough going. They had City away, Chelsea away, and Arsenal at home. The Chelsea away fixture, they kept a clean sheet in a 0 draw. And then in that Arsenal game, which is a very important game for Liverpool, obviously, they drew 2-2, so they did concede 2 goals. It was against the league leaders. And the fact that Konate started in all 3 of these really tough fixtures does kind of go to show, at least to me, that I think Klopp has decided that Konate is now first choice. So at 4.8 million, as a way to cover Trent's clean sheets, who will be very high on the agenda for most teams that do not have a wild card and do not have a bench boost, they will be absolutely trying to maximise the value on the pitch. They don't have to worry about having a little bit of value on the bench. Trent will be one of the most owned players, and so we can at least cover the clean sheets with Konate, assuming that he still continues to start. And the only thing that we will be down on is any attacking returns. But Konate at 4.8 million versus a Trent at 7.3 million at the time of recording is quite a significant difference, and that money is going into my threemium assets in the middle of the park and, well, in my attackers. So that's the first differential. We will tidy off the rest of the defense because obviously there's only 1 slot left, and it is Tarkowski. As I mentioned, Botman is staying on the bench this week, and the other somewhat differential player is to double up on the Manchester United defense and get Luke Shaw's replacement in Malacia. Now, obviously, I am recording this before we have heard any news about exactly when Luke Shaw is going to be back. We are also unsure of when Rashford is going to be back, but what we do know is that Malacia has come in to replace Shaw. Shaw has got a hamstring injury. Hamstring injuries are usually, well, at least a couple of weeks. They hardly ever get recovered from quickly, and if they're not a couple of weeks, they could be even longer if he has in fact pulled it. We are not sure of that at the moment. And having Malacia in there means if I if Shaw is going to be back for game week 34, there will be a little bit of money left over in this squad. It's about 0.9 million. Once I finish all the trades, I should be able to go from Malacia to Luke Shaw, should I need to, if he does come back in the coming game weeks, right? So that's the back line. We then step into midfield. We're going still without any Arsenal assets, and the first big hitter that's coming in is Mo Salah. Liverpool looked really good in that fixture against Arsenal, apart from the first 20 to 30 minutes, where Arsenal looked like they were absolutely going to tear Liverpool a new one. I think after the adrenaline wore off and Liverpool actually kicked into gear, Salah had an amazing game. Liverpool on the whole are looking a lot stronger than what they have been, and their run of fixtures for the remainder of the season is just unreal. So Leeds away this week. I will be free hitting in game week 32 where they play Nottingham Forest at home. I will still have Salah on that free hit. They then have West Ham away in 33. The double both games at home against Tottenham and Fulham in 34. Brentford at home 35. 36 is Leicester away. 37 Aston Villa at home, and 38 is Southampton away. That is about probably the best run of fixtures you will probably see. I think they are probably sitting at the top of most fixture tickers out there. And Salah is just that kind of FPL player that can go mental in any match. Now, he is a big part of the reason why I've decided to pull this wildcard forward into game week 31 as opposed to waiting until game week 33, and it's just because of this Leeds fixture. Leeds just got absolutely pumped at the weekend. They were playing at home against Crystal Palace. To be fair to Crystal Palace, they have just come off an absolutely sick run of fixtures where they've played basically all the top teams for about the last 8 game weeks or something ridiculous. So they have had pretty good opponents and they've been playing some pretty tough football. They came up against Leeds and they smoked them 5-1 at Leeds' home ground. Liverpool are a better team than Crystal Palace. This could be 5-0 again or more, 7, 8. Who knows? It could be telephone numbers, and we want to jump on someone like Salah that most managers out there will not be able to get to without sacrificing someone like Harry Kane, who has Bournemouth at home this week. So we did jump on Salah a little bit earlier than everyone else. Hopefully he comes away with a double-figure haul in this game against Leeds away, and he will be right and ready for that double in game week 34. Now, Rashford is obviously injured. We do not know how long he is injured for. We're just going to sell him and just play it by ear at the moment. We will have, this team does have plans to get Rashford back. I will go through those plans a little bit later. As you'll see, the last slot in my team for the last Manchester United spot is another bit of a differential pick. And depending on, there's 2 Manchester United players that I'm looking at for this wildcard draft. I'm not entirely sure which one I'm going to lock in yet. There are a couple of advantages and disadvantages to both. But for the meantime, McAllister will be in for their string of double game weeks. I've already mentioned what they are, but if I just bring them up again, the Brighton fixtures aren't amazing defensive fixtures for the remainder of the season. I am going with Steele in the hopes that, well, I will be covering Estupiñán points for any of the clean sheets that they do muster up across this run. But Chelsea away this game week, then a blank. Nottingham Forest at home is pretty good for a clean sheet. Wolves is alright for a clean sheet. Manchester United not so much. Everton's okay for a clean sheet. But then Arsenal, Newcastle, Man City and Villa probably all score against Brighton. They do have that game against Southampton as well. So maybe 3 clean sheets across the remainder of the season. Whereas I think Brighton can score in all of these games and score multiple goals in all of these games. And so In order to maximise the likely points output, I've gone for 2 attackers from the Brighton team and Steele in net. So McAllister is the first one. We'll get rid of Odegaard and bring in Mitoma on the bench. So 2 very cheap enablers that really do unlock this threemium wildcard draft, which isn't completely locked in yet. But that run of fixtures, I'm pretty sure McAllister and Mitoma can do the business across that run of fixtures. Right, now Maddison, another one of my weak players that was a bit of a punt for a couple of weeks, did not work out at all, but did manage to cover Bruno Fernandes's points. Obviously in the Manchester United squad, Casemiro will be back this week. Eriksen is also coming back from fitness. They do have the injury to Rashford though, so we're not entirely sure where the goals are going to come from, although that is part of one of the reasons I am picking my remaining Manchester United player. But for this spot here, we're going with another slightly risky pick, and we're going to try and triple up on the Manchester City attack by bringing in Riyad Mahrez to play against his former club Leicester City at home. Now this is obviously pretty risky. Mahrez, I think, is probably first choice out on that right wing. He does have competition from Bernardo Silva. We have also seen Alvarez, I think, play out on the right wing as well at various parts of the season, and so there is a lot of competition for Mahrez out on that right flank. But for these Manchester City fixtures, Leicester at home, Leicester have been woeful. They've sacked Brendan Rodgers. The team looks to be in shambles, and Man City could absolutely pump 5 goals or more past them this week. I just want to jump on any high ceiling player that could start and could do very well in that fixture. If Mahrez does start this fixture against his old club, I think he will be wanting to make a statement, score as many goals as he can. He is more than capable of doing so. And he is a rotation risk. So this wild card does come with some risks. I am currently on the attack. I am willing to take risks for the remainder of the season. You got to take risks at some point in FPL, and why not jump on the best teams in order to do so? So Mahrez is in. That gives me the triple up in Man City attack of Haaland, Mahrez and Grealish. As I mentioned, Grealish came in last week. He is staying on the wild card. He looks about as nailed as can be. With Foden still on the sidelines through his surgery that he will be recovering from. Now, I did have a very quick look at the Man City schedule to see how risky it is to be bringing in Mahrez in game week 31. So tomorrow morning is the City game against Bayern Munich. That's actually tomorrow morning New Zealand time, which is probably today evening UK time. There is then a 4-day break until they play Leicester that'll be Saturday the 15th in UK. So there's Bayern on the 11th, Leicester on the 15th, so that's a good 4-day break. That's more than enough time to recover. They then have another 4-day break until they play Bayern Munich again on the 19th in UK time. They then have the FA Cup semi-finals against Sheffield United. I don't know if Mahrez really needs to play this game. I suspect that obviously Mahrez is first choice. He will probably be playing both Bayern fixtures. The Leicester fixture is smack bang in the middle, but there's a full 3-day rest either side, so it's 4 days, but a full 3-day rest in between. They then have a couple of days rest until that FA Cup semi-final match against Sheffield United, and then they play Arsenal on the 26th in UK time. Didn't mean to click that. Which is another decent 4-day break, so a full 3-day rest with the turnaround time of actually playing on the day. I think Mahrez will play both Bayern games and obviously that Arsenal game, and I suspect he will probably play that Leicester fixture as well. The game week 34 fixtures, which I'm really hoping that he is going to be playing in. Now, this is part of the risk of pulling this wild card early. It's very hard to predict who's going to be playing in game week 34. But considering that that Arsenal fixture is on the 26th, even though it says 27th on screen, it's the 26th in UK, and then on the 30th is the Fulham fixture for the first game of game week 34. It's another 4-day break, so they've actually got quite a kind schedule. There's no... Manchester United have been playing like every 2 days for a few games in a row, whereas City have the extra couple days break in between all of these. And then West Ham 3 days after that Fulham fixture, and so there is the chance that Mahrez gets rested in one of these 2 games. I think there's a chance that anyone in the City squad probably gets rested in some of these games, and so the theory behind my selected 3 premiums for this wildcard is I don't want to have heavily invested in a player that could be rotated. So De Bruyne is the obvious glaring omission from my threemium setup here. I am more inclined to go Mahrez at, let's see, at 7.3 million. If Mahrez gets rested at 7.3 million, it doesn't hurt as much as De Bruyne being rested at 12.1 million. So I can put my 12 million pounds into Salah, Haaland, and spoiler alert, my final premium in this team is going to be Harry Kane. So those 3 players are basically about as nailed as it gets. We don't have any rotation issues with the premiums. I'm more than happy to take a bit of a risk on the Man City squad, considering they could score an abundance of goals across this run of fixtures. And if Mahrez gets rested, De Bruyne could also be rested, and so therefore I'd prefer that if anyone gets rested, it's Mahrez that's rested over De Bruyne, and I do not lose all that value on the bench in this wildcard draft. Now, once Liverpool have played their double in 34, there are other options available to obviously switch out Mahrez and bring in De Bruyne and get rid of Salah as well. But we're not planning for any of that. That's too far in the future. But there is enough flexibility here to do those kind of moves. I could also look at getting rid of Kane in order to fund the De Bruyne move, but Tottenham's run out for the end of the season, they've got a couple of tricky games in 33 and 34, so that's Manchester United at home and Liverpool away. Apart from that, they then run out the system, so they've got run out the season. They've got Bournemouth at home in 31. I'll be free hitting in 32, but they do play Newcastle away for any of you who do not have a free hit. And then the final 4 fixtures of the season is Crystal Palace at home, Aston Villa away, Brentford at home, and Leeds away. No doubles to speak of, but they are pretty good fixtures for Harry Kane, and I think I will be running with him for the remainder of the season. He's been in my team forever and is just scoring week on week. And so I do not want to be losing Harry Kane on this wildcard. And then the final spot for this wildcard draft is my final risky pick of Martial up front. Now, Martial has not yet started for Manchester United. He's come off the bench and played... Oh, that's Liverpool. He's played for the last 3 weeks in the Premier League off the bench. It looks like he is being nursed back into the team with extra care, because we all know exactly how injury prone Martial is. Newcastle in game week 29, he got 28 minutes. Then in the short turnaround against Brentford at home, he got 19 minutes off the bench. He then came off the bench in the Everton game in game week 30 for 30 minutes. So this looks like a bit of a ramp up. Typically when players are coming back from injury, you typically see a couple of starts off the bench, one of which is a 30-minute appearance or more, maybe a bit more, and then they go and start the fixture and play about 60 to 70 minutes. That's typically the way it works. Given Martial's injury record, I think Ten Hag's just put on the handbrake to slow down to bring him back and given him an extra game coming in off the bench, especially with the quick turnaround that Manchester United has been dealing with. They still have an insanely congested fixture schedule though, and so this is actually quite a big risk to be going for Martial. I am well aware of this risk. However, with the injury to Rashford, I do not know where the goals come from in the Manchester United team. Rashford has been scoring all the goals for United. Like, he has just been their one outlet for goals, similar to Harry Kane at Tottenham. Now, without Rashford, we've basically got no goal scorer, and I think that probably forces Ten Hag's hand in order to put Martial in up front. I'm expecting something like Casemiro and maybe Eriksen, if he's ready to start yet, as the two central defensive midfielders. However, Fernandes has played so well there for the last three or four game weeks. We may see it be Casemiro and Fernandes as the two central defensive midfielders. We're expected to see Anthony on the right. I'd say Sancho on the left. Maybe Fernandes in 10, or Eriksen could probably play in 10. I think we've even seen Sancho play in 10 for a little bit as well. And Weghorst has also played in 10. So there's lots of options for who's going to play in the hole behind the striker. But in terms of players up front, there's only Martial and Weghorst. And Weghorst is just not a prolific goal scorer. And considering we need goals in the United squad, I think Martial probably starts against Nottingham Forest away this week in game week 31. Now that is a bit of a risky punt. I am kind of on the fence about this because I do not like having Martial, Mahrez and Konate. I've been sitting with these thoughts for a couple of days. I think Konate is about as nailed as I can get. Well, I've got as much information as I'm going to get about whether or not I think he's going to start, so I just have to go with that and hope that he continues to start. Mahrez, we know, is a rotation risk in that Man City squad, but anyone is. I'm willing to take the hit, as I said, on the Manchester City rotation in order to hopefully get some very high ceiling returns from the players that I go with. And I think Martial just kind of has to play. And so I'm really hoping Martial plays and doesn't get injured in this very heavy fixture congestion. I think Ten Hag will manage the absolute crap out of him and probably pull him off after 60 to 65 minutes in every game. I don't think Martial's going to make it to 90 minutes very often. But Martial is currently in there as a slot holder for Rashford. Now, assuming if Rashford is back for game week 34, the plans are to sell Martial and Mahrez to jump on Rashford and another doubler up front for game week 34, if that is the case. My other alternative to this wildcard, so it's not completely locked in yet, is to not go with Martial, go with someone like Isak. I've even flirted with Danny Ings, but Danny Ings' couple of games coming up are a bit hard. Danny Ings is also a bit of an injury-prone player and is currently being rotated, and so I'd probably side with Isak and put someone like Sancho in midfield. The reason that I may opt to go for this instead is to get from Sancho to Rashford is only one transfer, where to go from Martial to Rashford is obviously two transfers, as I am already maxed out on the Manchester United allocation for my team. However, I just think Martial's a much better goal scorer than Sancho. I think he's going to get more goals, and I also think Mahrez is going to score more as well. And so the pair of Mahrez and Martial is my most likely approach to this wildcard. Now, as you can see, that's 10 full transfers to my team, leaves me 1.0 million in the bank to play around with. Luke Shaw, Rashford, who could be coming back. I do also have some plans for Harry Kane in game week 34, and so we will go through these now. So that would be the game week 31 squad. It would be lining up like this: Steele and net against Chelsea away, Trippier for Aston Villa away, Martinez for Nottingham Forest away, Kanate for Leeds away. I do not like the fact that all 4 of my defenders are all away fixtures, but they are against pretty decent opposition apart from the Chelsea fixture for Brighton. In the middle of the park, I've got Salah away to Leeds, McAllister away to Chelsea, Mahrez at home to Leicester, Grealish at home to Leicester. Up front, Haaland captain at home to Leicester, Kane at home to Bournemouth. Many managers will be making the decision between Kane and Salah this week. I have got both, which is already differential enough. And Martial away to Nottingham Forest. Bench of Fabianski, Mitoma, Malacia and Botman. Scroll forward to game week 32. I will be free hitting. I'm not going to build a free hit team for this because that'll take too long. Game week 33, I will be coming in with 1 free transfer. This is basically the same team that I would build in game week 33 if I was going to wildcard in game week 33, apart from maybe Kane up front. So the advantage of pulling the wildcard forward is I get both Kane and Salah for Bournemouth at home and Leeds away. I get to triple up on the City attack for Leicester at home, even though it is a bit of a punt. I also get to jump on I get to tidy up Maddison, Rashford and my bench and get set for game week 34. However, the added risk of doing this in 31 is I am obviously a lot further away from my bench boost in 34 than I would have been in game week 33. But this is the team I'd roughly wildcard to in game week 33 anyway. If I do wildcard in 31, which I am almost certainly going to do, Harry Kane may or may not play this fixture against Manchester United. I am not too sure. It'll kind of depend on how the teams do across game weeks 31 and 32. But let's just say I roll the transfer and come into game week 34, which is my bench boost week, with 2 free transfers in hand. I will put all the doublers on the pitch so we can see this. So we would have Steele and net at home to Wolves and home to, I'll just read them out in terms of doubles. So Steele with a double, Malacia and Martinez with a double, Kanate with a double, Salah, McAllister, Mahrez, Grealish, Mitoma, all with doubles across the middle of the park. I'm a little bit worried about whether Mahrez or Grealish are still starting at this point. Foden could be back, although I doubt he will be. However, with the fixture congestion, we could see a bit of rotation with Bernardo Silva or Alvarez maybe covering some spots here. Haaland up front for his double, Martial up front for his double, Fabianski on the bench for his double, Crystal Palace away, Man City away, as I discussed earlier. Kane away to Liverpool, so that's not a great single game week. And then my 2 Newcastle lads both have singles against Southampton at home. So that's actually a pretty good single game week for my Newcastle lads. What I may do here is go Kane out to one of the Liverpool lads, either Diego Jota or Darwin Núñez. Hopefully by game week 34 we have a much clearer idea from Klopp as to who exactly is starting consistently out of Jota and Darwin Núñez. But let's just say that we go with Jota. That will buy me an extra double. So I'd have Fabianski doubling, Jota doubling, and Trippier and Botman on the bench at home to Southampton with 1 free transfer in hand. I'm a little unsure what I will do with that extra transfer. I could trade Botman out for another defender. There's not a hell of a lot of defenders that have a good double in game week 34 that I could easily jump on. I'm maxed out on United, I'm maxed out on City, I'm maxed out on Brighton. I could look at buying another Liverpool defender for the Tottenham and Fulham double. However, if I did do that, I would be using my money that's actually there to just buy Harry Kane straight back for Diogo Jota in game week 35. So the plan is sell Kane for 34 in that double. I may even do that 1 week earlier in game week 33. But I'm pretty sure, is it Liverpool? Liverpool play West Ham away in 33, so I could jump on Jota or Nunez a week earlier for Kane and then bring Kane back in for game week 35 for his home fixture against Crystal Palace. But this is roughly how 35 would look. We'd probably bench Matoma for against Everton at home, or maybe Martial, West Ham away, depending on how many minutes Martial is getting by that point in game week 35. We'll just turn on the projected fixtures from Planet FPL. We roll forward to 36. This is when Newcastle and Brighton look like they are most likely going to double, and so we would play Trippier, play Botman. We could at this point sell Martial for Isak for that double for one of my 2 free transfers. So we've brought in Kane the week prior. We'll probably end up absolute benching headache here, but maybe we bench Grealish or Mahrez in order to play. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So we'd have the triple Newcastle double of Brighton at home, Leeds away. We'd have the triple Brighton double of Newcastle away and Arsenal away. Like I said, this is not great defensive double for Brighton, but I think they can score in both these fixtures. Steele and net, Salah away to Leicester, Martinez at home to Wolves, Grealish away to Everton, Haaland away to Everton, and Kane away to Aston Villa with 6 doublers in 36. Roll forward to 37, which is the other final double game week of the season. Who knows if Mahrez is still playing at this point, but we probably bring Mahrez in. We got triple City double, triple Brighton double. We would have to bring in Malacia, triple United, double United, because I have just sold Martial for Isak the week earlier. This might be the point at which we look at doing something like De Bruyne in for this double, depending on what the state of affairs is with Man City's Champions League, whether they're still in the Champions League or not, how many minutes Mahrez and Grealish are getting, whether or not Foden's back by this point. So as you can see, although I've made no transfers for the remainder of the season, most of those transfers are there to kind of jump around the doubles and try to maximize what we can for the remainder of the season. And then for the final game week of the season, it's actually not looking too bad, assuming that we haven't made any transfers. We may end up benching all 3 Newcastle players that are away to Chelsea, and all the fixtures on screen are pretty good. Triple Brighton away to Aston Villa, double Liverpool away to Southampton, double United at home to Fulham, triple City away to Brighton, and Kane up front away to Leeds. So as you can see, all the players have very good fixtures for the remainder of the season for this wildcard. There's a lot up in the air with the Rashford, Shaw, De Bruyne, Foden, Mahrez, Grealish situation, but on the whole, I think the structure of the team is there in order to have a pretty good run into the end of the season. So that's it for the wildcard. A lot to talk about. Took a lot longer than I thought it would. I thought I was going to get through that a little bit quicker, but that is the threemium that I will most likely be going with. Obviously, we will be waiting for the Champions League fixtures for Man City and Manchester United to see what's going on with Martial, Mahrez, De Bruyne, get some more information about what's going on there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So, considering you did make it this far through the video, please do give the video a like. If you are new around here, please hit the big red subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified about more FPL content coming your way. And if you have any questions, please do drop a comment in the thread below, and I will do my best to get back to those within a couple of days. And until next time, I will catch you again shortly. Cheers.